My wife and best friend betrayed me. I've been planning my revenge for a year, and now it's finally happening. I never thought I'd be the type of guy to share my life on the internet, but here we are. I guess I just need to get this off my chest before it all goes down. This is going to sound insane, but bear with me because I promise it's all true. About a year ago, I found out my wife, Lauren, was having an affair with my best friend, Kyle. The two people I trusted most in this world stabbed me in the back, and they didn't even have the decency to cover their tracks properly. You see, Kyle left his phone unlocked one night when we were out drinking. I wasn't snooping, honestly. I was just grabbing his phone to silence it because it kept buzzing on the bar. That's when I saw a string of messages from Lauren. At first, I thought, wow, that's weird. Why is my wife texting my best friend this late? But then I read the messages and my stomach dropped. Can't wait to see you tonight. He has no idea. I wish you could stay the whole night, but he might notice. You drive me crazy in ways he never could. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped his phone. I put it back where I found it and tried to act normal for the rest of the night, but inside, I was dying. When I got home, I confronted Lauren. I showed her the texts and demanded an explanation. At first, she denied everything, tried to gaslight me like I was the crazy one. But when I told her I'd already seen Kyle's phone, she broke down and admitted to the affair. I didn't mean for it to happen, she cried. It just happened. The betrayal was like a knife to the heart. This wasn't some fling. This had been going on for months behind my back, under my nose, with the person I called my brother. I kicked her out that night. As for Kyle, I didn't even bother confronting him. I just blocked him everywhere and decided I never wanted to see his face again. But the thing is, I wasn't content to just let them go and move on. No, I wanted them to feel the kind of pain they'd inflicted on me. And so, I began planning my revenge. I knew revenge wouldn't be quick or easy. It had to be methodical, calculated, and most importantly, satisfying. I spent the first month after the betrayal in a haze of anger and heartbreak, but once that cleared, I focused on the plan. Step 1. Gather information. I knew Lauren and Kyle thought they'd gotten off easy. As far as they knew, I'd simply kicked her out and cut him off. They assumed I'd fade into the background while they lived happily ever after. That assumption was their first mistake. Lauren moved in with Kyle almost immediately after I'd kicked her out. She probably thought I didn't know, but I had my ways. A mutual acquaintance, let's call him Dan, kept me in the loop. Dan was one of those friends who knew everybody and everything but never picked sides. He told me Lauren and Kyle were getting serious, even talking about buying a house together. I wasn't surprised. Lauren always had a knack for moving on quickly, but this time I wasn't going to let her move on without consequences. Step 2. Set the stage. I knew exactly how to hurt them, and it wasn't through physical violence or petty sabotage. No, the best revenge would be psychological. I wanted to make them doubt each other, question their choices, and ultimately destroy the trust I'd built on the ruins of my life. Step 3. Make them doubt each other. I started small, just a few subtle nudges to sow the seeds of distrust. It began with anonymous messages sent to Lauren. Simple things like, does he still think about his ex? Or Kyle's good at keeping secrets, isn't he? To Kyle, I sent messages that were even more cryptic. Funny how you always end up second best. Or she's good at lying, isn't she? I knew they'd both deny sending the messages to each other, but the damage was already done. A relationship built on betrayal is always precarious, and it didn't take much to make them paranoid. Step 4. Escalate. A few weeks later, I accidentally ran into Kyle at a coffee shop. I acted surprised, friendly even. Hey, man, long time no see. His face turned pale when he saw me, but he tried to play it cool. We chatted for a bit, and I casually mentioned how I was seeing someone new. She's great, really helped me get back on my feet. You'd like her, actually. She reminds me of Lauren. His eyes narrowed, and I could see the wheels turning in his head. I wasn't actually seeing anyone, of course, but the idea that Lauren might have reached out to me or that I still had feelings for her was enough to plant a seed of doubt in Kyle's mind. Step 5. Break them apart. The messages and my encounter with Kyle were just the beginning. To really shatter their relationship, I needed to hit them where it hurt their trust. Lauren had always been the jealous type, and Kyle was notoriously bad at hiding secrets. I decided to exploit both of these traits. Using a burner phone, I sent Lauren a series of anonymous texts pretending to be an ex-girlfriend of Kyle's. The messages were deliberately vague yet provocative. "Hey Kyle, I miss what we had. Remember how good things were before her? I know you still think about me. I think about you too." It didn't take long before Lauren confronted Kyle about the text. According to Dan, their mutual acquaintance, she blew up at him, accusing him of cheating. Kyle, of course, denied everything, but Lauren wasn't the type to let things go easily. She started digging through his phone, his social media, even his email, just like I knew she would. Meanwhile, I wasn't done with Kyle. I hired a private investigator to follow him around for a few days and snap photos whenever he was out with female coworkers or friends. Once I had a decent collection of images, I sent them anonymously to Lauren with captions like, "Caught him lying again, and he's good at covering his tracks." Their arguments became more frequent and more intense. Dan told me Lauren had started sleeping in the guest room. It was working. Step 6. Make them self-destruct. By this point, Kyle and Lauren's relationship was hanging by a thread. They barely spoke to each other, and when they did, it was usually an argument. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted the final blow to come from them, not me. I devised one last trick. Using what I'd learned from the private investigator, I sent Lauren an anonymous message claiming to be someone Kyle had been secretly meeting. It read, "You deserve to know the truth. He's been lying to both of us." Lauren, being the paranoid person she was, immediately took the bait. She stormed into Kyle's workplace one afternoon and caused a scene, accusing him of cheating on her again. Dan told me she even threw a drink in his face in front of his coworkers. Kyle, furious, yelled back, "You're insane. You've been sabotaging me from the start." By the time the dust settled, their relationship was over. Lauren moved out and stayed with a friend while Kyle buried himself in work to avoid the embarrassment. They burned their bridges and each other, and I was finally free from their shadow. It felt like justice, but it also felt bittersweet. They'd hurt me deeply, and while I'd succeeded in making them suffer, it didn't erase the pain they'd caused. Still, it was satisfying to know they couldn't build their happiness on the ashes of my life. Even after Lauren and Kyle's relationship imploded, I felt like there was still unfinished business. They deserved to lose each other, but I wanted to make sure their betrayal left a lasting mark, not just on their lives, but on how others saw them too. Step 7. Expose the truth. I wasn't content with just breaking them apart. I wanted the world to know who they really were. Lauren had been trying to rebuild her image after moving out of Kyle's place. She'd started posting on social media again, carefully curating a persona of independence and self-growth. It was all a facade, of course. I decided it was time for that facade to crumble. Using some of the photos and messages I'd collected over the past year, I anonymously created a social media account and began sharing them. The posts were vague enough not to violate any rules, but clear enough that anyone who knew Lauren or Kyle would recognize them instantly. One post read, "Funny how some people preach about loyalty while secretly betraying everyone who trusts them. Hypocrisy." Another one, "You know who you are. Cheating with your best friend's wife isn't love. It's just pathetic." The account quickly gained traction, and people started commenting, tagging Lauren and Kyle in the posts, asking questions. Neither of them responded publicly, but I knew they'd seen the posts. The mutual acquaintance, Dan, told me Lauren had called him crying, saying she felt like her life was falling apart again. But I wasn't done. Step 8. Sabotage their professional lives. Lauren had recently landed a new job at a marketing firm. She was trying to rebuild her career after the drama with Kyle, but she hadn't bothered to change her work email password, a password I'd figured out months ago while snooping through her old accounts. I forwarded some of her emails to her boss anonymously, highlighting her attempts to use company resources for personal projects. Nothing outright illegal, but enough to make her look unprofessional. Within a few weeks, she was let go. Kyle, meanwhile, had been angling for a promotion at his job. I knew the company's HR manager from years ago, an old college friend who still owed me a favor. I casually mentioned Kyle's name during a conversation and hinted at some ethical concerns, without revealing specifics. A week later, Kyle's promotion was put on hold, and he was under investigation for improper conduct. It was almost too easy. Update 1. You reap what you sow. It's been about 6 months since Lauren and Kyle's lives fell apart, and I have to say, things are finally looking up for me. I've been focusing on myself, reconnecting with old friends, and even started dating someone new. She knows bits and pieces about what happened with Lauren and Kyle, but I've kept the revenge part to myself. That's not something I need to share. As for Lauren, last I heard, she's living with her parents again and hasn't been able to hold down a job. She's deleted all her social media accounts and seems to be keeping a low profile. Kyle? He is still at his company, but his reputation is in tatters. Nobody trusts him, and he's lost almost all his friends. I don't regret what I did. In the end, they got what they deserved. Update 2. The final piece of closure. Something happened recently that I wasn't expecting. Kyle reached out to me. It was out of the blue, a simple text message asking if we could meet up for coffee. At first, I ignored it, but the more I thought about it, the more curious I became. Why would he want to see me after all this time? We met at a small cafe downtown, and I'll admit, I was nervous. But when I saw him, I realized he wasn't the confident, smug guy I used to know. He looked worn down, like life had hit him hard. He started off with an apology. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, he said, but I need you to know how sorry I am. What we did, it was the worst mistake of my life. I didn't say much at first. I just let him talk. He told me how everything had fallen apart, though Lauren's jealousy and paranoia had destroyed their relationship. How he'd lost the trust of his co-workers. How he felt like he'd ruined his own life. When he was done, he looked at me expectantly, like he was waiting for absolution. I just looked him in the eye and said, I hope you learned something from all of this. Then I left. That's where things stand now. I finally feel like I have closure. Lauren and Kyle broke me, but in the end, I came out stronger. Their betrayal taught me a lot about trust, about resilience, and about the power of karma. If you're reading this, I hope my story reminds you that you don't have to let others walk all over you. Sometimes the best revenge is making sure they can't hurt you or anyone else ever again. After walking out of that coffee shop, I couldn't shake the conversation with Kyle. It wasn't his apology that lingered, it was the look in his eyes. He was broken, yes, but there was something else there, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. For the first time since this whole thing started, I wondered if he truly understood the damage he'd caused or if he was just sorry I'd lost. I told myself it didn't matter. Closure wasn't about him or Lauren, it was about me. I'd taken my revenge, and they'd paid the price. But closure is a funny thing, it has a way of slipping through your fingers when you think you've grasped it. A week later, I got a message from an unknown number. At first, I thought it was spam and ignored it, but then another one came through. We need to talk. I froze. The message came with a location, an address downtown. I wasn't sure who had sent it, but I had a sinking feeling it was Lauren. Against my better judgment, I decided to go. Part of me wanted to hear what she had to say, even if it was just more lies. When I arrived, she was waiting outside a small, run-down diner. She looked different, not the polished, confident woman I'd once known. She looked tired, defeated. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. I didn't respond. I just crossed my arms and waited for her to speak. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, she began, but I need to tell you the truth. The whole truth. I almost laughed. The truth? Now you care about the truth? She winced at my tone, but pressed on. You were right about Kyle. He wasn't who I thought he was. That caught my attention. She told me how, after I'd cut them both out of my life, things between her and Kyle had started to unravel. At first, she thought it was because of the guilt or the stress of being discovered. But as time went on, she began to see another side of him, a side she hadn't noticed before. He lied about so many things, she said, her voice trembling. Not just to you, but to me too. He was seeing other women the whole time we were together. And when I confronted him, he said it was my fault, that I wasn't enough. For a moment, I felt a flicker of pity for her. But then I remembered the betrayal, the lies, the months of agony she and Kyle had put me through. Whatever she was going through now, she'd brought it on herself. So why, tell me this? I asked. She looked down at her hands. I guess I wanted you to know that I made a mistake. A huge mistake. I ruined everything, and I don't know how to fix it." I stared at her for a long time, searching for any sign of sincerity. Maybe she really did regret what she'd done. Maybe she was just looking for absolution. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said finally. Then I walked away. Update 3. The unexpected twist. Just when I thought the chapter was closed for good, life threw me another curveball. A few days after meeting Lauren, I got a call from Dan, the mutual acquaintance who'd been keeping me updated. He sounded nervous, almost panicked. "Hey man, I don't know how to tell you this, but Kyle's been talking about you." I frowned. "What do you mean?" Dan hesitated. "He's blaming you for everything. The breakup, his ruined promotion, his reputation, everything. He's been saying you're the one who set him up." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Did he say how he knows?" "No, but he's been drinking a lot. And honestly, he's been acting kind of unstable." That was all I needed to hear. I thanked Dan for the heads up and hung up, but my mind was racing. If Kyle suspected me, what would he do? I'd been careful, meticulous even, but I hadn't anticipated him unraveling like this. The next few weeks were tense. I started noticing things small, seemingly insignificant things that added up to something bigger. A car parked outside my house for hours, a strange number calling me repeatedly and hanging up. I even thought I saw Kyle in the grocery store once, but when I turned around, he was gone. One night, I came home to find my front door slightly ajar. My heart raced as I stepped inside, half expecting to find Kyle waiting for me. But the house was empty. The only sign that something was off was a photo on my living room shelf, a photo of me, Lauren, and Kyle from years ago. It had been turned face down. I knew then that Kyle wasn't just blaming me, he was planning something. For the first time since all of this started, I felt genuinely uneasy. Kyle wasn't just angry anymore, he was unraveling, and I couldn't predict what his next move would be. I considered going to the police, but what would I even tell them? That my former best friend might be stalking me because I'd orchestrated his downfall? Not exactly the kind of story that hold up in court. Instead, I took precautions. I installed security cameras around my house, changed my locks, and started keeping a baseball bat by my bed. It felt paranoid, sure, but I wasn't about to let Kyle catch me off guard. Then one night, it happened. I was lying in bed, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, when I heard a noise outside, like something scraping against the side of the house. My heart started pounding as I sat up, straining to listen. For a moment, everything was silent. Then I heard it again, louder this time. I grabbed the bat and made my way to the front door, my palms slick with sweat. The cameras hadn't sent any alerts, but I checked the live feed on my phone anyway. That's when I saw it. A figure standing just out of range of the cameras, partially obscured by the shadow of a tree. "Kyle," I muttered under my breath. For a moment I considered calling the police, but something stopped me. Maybe it was pride, or maybe I just wanted to confront him myself. Either way, I unlocked the door and stepped outside, gripping the bat tightly. "What the hell are you doing here?" I shouted into the darkness. The figure stepped closer, and sure enough, it was him. His face was gaunt, his eyes wild. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "You think you can just ruin my life and get away with it?" he snarled. "You think I wouldn't figure it out?" I took a step back, keeping the bat raised. "I didn't ruin your life, Kyle. You did that all on your own." His laugh was hollow, almost manic. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Sending those messages, sabotaging my job, turning Lauren against me. You've been pulling the strings this whole time." I didn't deny it. "Maybe I have. But what did you expect after what you did to me? You betrayed me, Kyle. You and Lauren both. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences?" His expression twisted into something between rage and desperation. "You don't understand. She was the only thing I had left, and you took her from me." I felt a surge of anger. "I took her? You stole her from me in the first place. Don't act like you're the victim here." For a moment, neither of us said anything. The night was eerily quiet, the tension so thick it was almost suffocating. Then, without warning, Kyle lunged at me. I swung the bat, more out of instinct than anything else, and it connected with his shoulder. He stumbled back, clutching his arm and swearing under his breath. "Get out of here, Kyle!" I said, my voice shaking. I'm done with this. I'm done with you. He glared at me, his chest heaving as he struggled to catch his breath. This isn't over, he said finally. You'll regret this. With that, he turned and disappeared into the night. I stood there for a long time, the bat still clutched in my hands, wondering if he really meant either, if those were the desperate words of a man who had nothing left to lose. Update 4. The aftermath. It's been a few weeks since that night, and things have been quiet. Too quiet. I haven't seen or heard from Kyle since, but I can't shake the feeling that he's out there, waiting for the right moment to strike. I've been trying to move on, focusing on my work, my friends, and my new relationship. But there's a part of me that can't let go of what happened. Maybe it's the guilty mean, I did ruin his life, even if he deserved it. Or maybe it's the fear that this isn't really over. People always say revenge doesn't bring closure, and I'm starting to understand what they mean. I got what I wanted, Lauren, and Kyle paid the price for their betrayal. But instead of feeling satisfied, I just feel hollow, like I've become someone I don't recognize. I don't know what the future holds, but one thing's for sure, I'm done with revenge. It's a dark, lonely road, and I don't want to walk it anymore. If Kyle does come back, I'll be ready. But for now, all I can do is hope that this chapter of my life is finally over. Let me know if you'd like me to add more layers, develop additional twists, or explore deeper emotional insight. The story can keep expanding into new dimensions if you'd like. After everything's settled, I began to notice the subtle consequences of my actions. Though Lauren and Kyle were out of my life, the memories of what I'd done lingered. Friends who had supported me during the fallout seemed distant now, perhaps wary of the lengths I'd gone to seek justice. Trust wasn't just something I'd lost, it was something I struggled to rebuild, even with myself. I started therapy, reluctantly at first. The therapist, Dr. Carter, didn't pry but had a way of asking the right questions to make me open up. Do you think your revenge gave you closure? She asked during one session. I hesitated. Not closure, but it felt necessary. She nodded. And now that it's done, what feels necessary for you moving forward? I didn't have an answer then, but that question stayed with me. Despite the awkwardness, I reached out to old friends and began repairing strained relationships. Dan, the mutual acquaintance who had helped me gather intel, was one of the first people I apologized to. You know, I dragged you into something messy, I told him over lunch. You didn't ask for this, and I should have been more upfront about my plans. Dan shrugged. It's water under the bridge, man. Honestly, I kind of admired your commitment to making them pay. But maybe it's time to let it go. His words hit me harder than I expected. Letting go wasn't easy, but it was becoming clear that holding on to the past wasn't doing me any favors. One of the strangest twists in the aftermath was reconnecting with Lauren's younger sister, Emily. She reached out to me, apologizing for the pain her family had caused, and expressing genuine sympathy. I was surprised. Emily had always seemed reserved, almost distant. I couldn't believe it when I found out what Lauren and Kyle did, she said during our coffee meetup. She's my sister, but honestly, I don't think I've ever been more disappointed in her. We talked for hours, not just about the betrayal, but about life in general. Emily's honesty and empathy were refreshing. And though I didn't see her as anything more than a friend at first, something about her presence felt grounding. Chapter 24. A new path. Months passed, and I started finding new ways to fill my time. Painting had always been a passion I'd put on the back burner, but now it became my therapy. I poured all the anger, sadness, and hope into the canvas, creating pieces that surprised even me. At Dr. Carter's suggestion, I submitted some of my work to a local gallery. To my shock, they accepted it for an exhibit. The night of the exhibit felt like a turning point. As people admired my paintings, I realized that this creation, growth, expression was what I needed. Revenge had been consuming, but it was fleeting. Art was enduring, transformative. Chapter 25. Closure comes slowly every so often. I still thought about Kyle and Lauren. The last I'd heard, Lauren had moved to a different state, trying to start fresh, while Kyle had spiraled deeper into his anger and loneliness. Part of me pitied them, but most of me simply felt detached. They were part of my past, a painful chapter, but one that had led to growth I never expected. Emily became a regular presence in my life, a friend who helped me navigate the ups and downs. She never judged me for the revenge, but gently encouraged me to focus on the future. Over time, Our bond deepened, and though I wasn't sure where it would lead, I felt grateful for her support. Chapter 26. The greatest lesson of all was understanding myself. Revenge didn't define me, but it taught me about the depths of my emotions, the strength of my resolve, and the importance of moving forward. It showed me that pain can be a powerful motivator, but it can also blind you to what truly matters. As I stood in front of my latest painting one evening, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here, I realized that the story wasn't about Kyle or Lauren. It was about me, and for the first time in years, I felt ready to turn the page. Let me know if you'd like to expand further or explore other angles in the aftermath. The story can stretch endlessly into themes of redemption, growth, or even unexpected twists. Months passed, and I started finding new ways to fill my time. Painting had always been a passion I'd put on the back burner, but now it became my therapy. I poured all the anger, sadness, and hope into the canvas, creating pieces that surprised even me. At Dr. Carter's suggestion, I submitted some of my work to a local gallery. To my shock, they accepted it for an exhibit. The night of the exhibit felt like a turning point. As people admired my paintings, I realized that this creation, growth, expression was what I needed. Revenge had been consuming, but it was fleeting. Art was enduring, transformative. Chapter 25. Closure comes slowly every so often. I still thought about Kyle and Lauren. The last I'd heard, Lauren had moved to a different state, trying to start fresh, while Kyle had spiraled deeper into his anger and loneliness. Part of me pitied them, but most of me simply felt detached. They were part of my past, a painful chapter, but one that had led to growth I never expected. Emily became a regular presence in my life, a friend who helped me navigate the ups and downs. She never judged me for the revenge, but gently encouraged me to focus on the future. Over time, our bond deepened, and though I wasn't sure where it would lead, I felt grateful for her support. Chapter 26. The greatest lesson of all was understanding myself. Revenge didn't define me, but it taught me about the depths of my emotions, the strength of my resolve, and the importance of moving forward. It showed me that pain can be a powerful motivator, but it can also blind you to what truly matters. As I stood in front of my latest painting one evening, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here, I realized that the story wasn't about Kyle or Lauren. It was about me. And for the first time in years, I felt ready to turn the page. Let me know if you'd like to expand further or explore other angles in the aftermath. The story can stretch endlessly into themes of redemption, growth, or even unexpected twists. Every so often, I still thought about Kyle and Lauren. The last I'd heard, Lauren had moved to a different state, trying to start fresh, while Kyle had spiraled deeper into his anger and loneliness. Part of me pitied them, but most of me simply felt detached. They were part of my past, a painful chapter, but one that had led to growth I never expected. Emily became a regular presence in my life, a friend who helped me navigate the ups and downs. She never judged me for the revenge, but gently encouraged me to focus on the future. Over time, our bond deepened, and though I wasn't sure where it would lead, I felt grateful for her support. The greatest lesson of all was understanding myself. Revenge didn't define me, but it taught me about the depths of my emotions, the strength of my resolve, and the importance of moving forward. It showed me that pain can be a powerful motivator, but it can also blind you to what truly matters. As I stood in front of my latest painting one evening, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here, I realized that the story wasn't about Kyle or Lauren. It was about me. And for the first time in years, I felt ready to turn the page. Let me know if you'd like to expand further or explore other angles in the aftermath. The story can stretch endlessly into themes of redemption, growth, or even unexpected twists. If you like this video, please subscribe for more.